Alright, it's taken me a very long time. I know this review is so late, but I really have a lot to say about Metal Gear Solid 5. And now just a heads up, if I can fit everything in this video, this is going to be a spoiler review, but the spoilers are going to be towards the second half of this video. You guys on this channel, on Because Video Games, I like to assume that you guys know me pretty well. This is the channel where I have a more intimate connection with some of you guys than some of the other people that watch me on the internet. So because of that, you probably know I am a huge Metal Gear Solid fan. It's like my favorite series ever. I obsess over it. It's like my Star Wars, my whatever. I collect everything. I love it. I grew up with it. It taught me a lot of things. I developed my love for video games through it. So Metal Gear Solid 5 was very significant for me, especially considering not only was it the next Metal Gear game, it's also seemingly Hideo Kojima's last game. So admittedly, I put a lot of expectations on this game. There was a lot lumped onto this game, and that's unfortunate. But at the end of the day, did I like Metal Gear Solid 5? Yeah, yes and no. You probably heard this before by now since this review is so late, but it's very easy for me to break it down. Gameplay? Yes. Story? Nah. Not no, but not really. So let's get that out of the way. Metal Gear Solid 5, especially if you've never played a Metal Gear Solid game before, that's fine, because this game is incredibly fun. It's well designed. It's probably one of the better stealth games I've played ever. Like, it's up there with Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. It's just that good. All the systems work completely well. Hiding, sneaking, every feature, every tool at your disposal works perfect. It's just an absolute perfect example of sandbox gameplay, but in a different perspective, in a way that works for the series. It doesn't work story-wise, but for gameplay-wise, this completely works for the Metal Gear Solid series. It doesn't feel forced. Everything works. The driving of the vehicles is great. The faultoning is great. The base-building side mechanic minigame is amazing. The stealth, the shooting, if you want to go guns blazing, you can. The game penalizes you for it, but not just by saying if you go in guns blazing, they give you an F. The ranking is very interesting in how it all works. And of course, it runs at 60 frames per second, which means this game is smooth as butter. The controls are incredible. And there's so many things I do like about it. The AI in this game, some people will criticize it, but I found it very unpredictable, and I found that to be a strength. Not unpredictable in the sense that it's like shitty, craptastic AI. Maybe sometimes you could take advantage of that a little bit. But the fact that you never really know the exact sight distance, the fact that there is no Soliton radar system, the fact that these guards in the bright of day, they might see you from like really far away, or sometimes they might not, and then it's stupid. It just works. It just feels convincing, and it all works very well. The buddy system is great, considering when I saw the previews of this game, I wanted to go in solo because that's how Snake and Big Boss roll. I didn't want any buddies. The buddies work great. D-Dog is obviously the best one if you want a stealth playthrough. He's absolutely badass. But sometimes when I want to go fuck it, I want to kill everyone, I play as Quiet. But before I get into those side characters, the amount of fun that you could have in this game is really, really unparalleled for a stealth game. I think that's really special, and that's what makes this inherently Metal Gear, and the fact that it is so weird and quirky and unique in the gameplay, not just in the story that newcomers won't understand at all, but the gameplay, it just works. That being said, on the criticism side, it does become a little bit of a grind fest. Sometimes they don't really utilize the whole full map size to their advantage, and there's a lot more that they ultimately could have done. But it is a great example of reusing maps and reusing certain areas of the gameplay map that just work particularly well. And the game is really interesting because it's the first Metal Gear game where the guards never really forget about seeing you. They don't have Alzheimer's 5 minutes later and go, hey, yeah, that guy we saw with a cool bandana who choked everyone and fucking smoked cool cigars and stopped nuclear weapons and hid in a cardboard box and sometimes held stealth camouflage. Yeah, forget about him. No, this game actually maintains that whole sense of guards actively searching for you and that you're not supposed to be there. And it makes the game really challenging. I do like that. I will say that the game is incredibly challenging at times, especially not to mention when you go in later games and play missions over again on super ultra hard mode with different settings. But like I said earlier, with the guards being unpredictable and the sight distances being kind of unknown, it makes the game very challenging and makes it feel like you're really sneaking around, not always just like you're manipulating the game systems to your advantage. It actually feels like you're sneaking around in a place you don't belong and the people are looking for you, and if they see you for a second, they're gonna flip out. That's where Metal Gear excels, because for me it feels like the stealth game equivalent of a Dark Souls Souls game where if you go through a mission, you take your time, you plan, you sneak, you crawl, you get through it completely unseen, and you get your ass out of there. You exfiltrate from that mission, completely unseen, perfect stealth. The release you get, the endorphins, the excitement, the video game bliss that you receive from getting that, from accomplishing that, is awesome. It's unparalleled. It's amazing, and it's so satisfying, and that's what makes this game awesome. Now, let's get to the story, and just before I get into spoilers, I will say the story, for those newcomers, you will get a basic story that you might be able to vaguely understand, a revenge plot, but after that, good luck. I don't know. Wikipedia might help a little bit, but you're gonna need a little more than Wikipedia because the story of Metal Gear and the whole series is so convoluted. You're fucked. But let's get a little into spoiler territories, okay? I didn't like the ending of Did I like it? Oh, I go back and forth on this. This is why it took so long to record this review, because I was just so unsure of myself, so nervous about talking about this game, because I'm very conflicted on how it ends. And I think ultimately it's not really what the ending is. I think it's the whole setup. I think a lot of the thing is the whole mission-based open world structure of the game that makes the story very staccatoed and very non-fluid. It just doesn't flow and things just happen. It's a series of sequences of things that don't really matter. And ultimately at the end, none of the characters really progress. None of them really learn anything. And we don't really learn anything, or not much. What I did like was the arc with Huey. Huey, Otacon's dad, that shit was really interesting. I thought that was great because he was a character while he was a pain in the ass, and it was a little bullshit how every time the writing just resulted to, oh, it's Huey's fault, time to torture him again. Oh wait, now he's our friend. Torture him again. That didn't really make any sense. At least he showed vulnerabilities. You could see where he was coming from. There were some motives behind his actions. But other than that, there wasn't really much to it. I mean, you know, Revolver Ocelot was a shell of his former self. Miller was a complete dick. You kind of get why he's a dick, but there's just not much to it. And Snake. Let's talk about Snake. Okay. Hang on. If you couldn't tell, I had to have a drink before this because I had to loosen up my feelings, because honestly, I gotta let these flow. I don't really know how I feel about this shit, okay? Because, you know, the game ends, you know, you play this game, this is a long game, this is a bit of a grind fest, which is also a little bit of a bullshit problem I have with this, but the fact that it's a grind fest, and you finally get to this ending, and it turns out the whole time, this character that you kind of spent a lot of time with and getting to know and stuff, turns out he's not even Snake. And the real payoff, there isn't really too much of a payoff other than the whole Hideo Kojima sub-meta thing going, you're Big Boss. We're all Big Boss. Good job. Thanks for playing. I appreciated that a lot. As the last Hideo Kojima game, I really enjoyed that. I thought that was great. But you don't really learn too much or get much out of it other than the fact that it totally resolves a little bit of a little thing in the old classic MSX games in the original Metal Gear Solid 1. But I don't think it was worth it to play an entire, like, 60-hour plus game just to get to this little explanation of a game from an NSX/Nintendo game that honestly just doesn't totally matter and could have been written off as just a video game plot thing. The surprise was good, though. The surprise worked. It was effective. The fact that you make this player avatar in the game kind of pulls a risk at kind of revealing it, and it gave me some suspicions. But also, it also worked because you play the game for so long, you forget about that, and then when you play it again, the reveal is there. The postcard flips over. It shows your name. Might make you shit your pants for a second. Good work, Kojima. That was really cool. But ultimately, like, I didn't really wrap up as much as I wanted it to for a Metal Gear game, like filling in those loose ends in between this huge expanse of, you know, the Metal Gear Big Boss to Metal Gear Solid. You know, it didn't give me enough. And people go, oh, but Jake, there's so much story in this game, you have to listen to the audio tapes. Not quite. I don't think that counts as video game. And I don't think that compares to Codec either, because Codec was different because it was there, you couldn't really skip it, and it actively gave you story. Even though it was complete exposition 100%, it wasn't an optional bullshit thing that you could click on and listen to while you walk around Mother Base and capture goats and shit. That being said, I do like some of them. You know, they did explain Fire Volgan's origins a little bit. They did go into Zero, and they made him a little bit more of, instead, just this evil shadowy figure who went from Metal Gear Solid 3 best friend to evil bad guy. They kind of made him this misunderstood vulnerable guy whose plans kind of left him. They went a little bit out of control, out of his reach. And that I can appreciate. But ultimately, this game leaves me with a lot more questions. What the fuck was Big Boss actually doing? Oh man, it also really sucks that they gave him no dialogue throughout the game because of this reason. That being said, I think Punished/Venom Snake is kind of more interesting as a character now after the fact. I think it's very cool, but I still would have liked to hear him say a little more. But I want to know what Big Boss was up to, and I still didn't really get that complete shift into this ideology. You know, I did like how it worked in the end. You get Operation Intrude, which is a reference to the original MSX game. That made me shit my pants, but I don't know. You still don't get a real key grasp on Big Boss in this pivotal moment of his life, which was important to me. I really wanted to find that out. But it is more satisfying in the fact that it's, hey, it's the last Metal Gear game. Good job. Thanks for playing. You have it in you. You're Big Boss. But ultimately, the game does feel a little unfinished, and you guys have probably read and heard about that. There is a lot more out there. You know, Baby Liquid Snake or Eli. I'd like his story explained a little more. I'd like a little bit more light shed on Les Enfants Terribles. Oh, I totally butchered that. Les Enfants Terribles. Les Enfants Terribles. Les Enfants Terribles. But ultimately, you know, we can't have everything. And I'm sure they probably wanted to make at least one more game after this, but doesn't look like they are now because Hideo is seemingly cut from Metal Gear and Konami. I don't know. So those are my thoughts about Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain. If you did have a good time with this video, maybe click the like button because that does help me out. You guys know that by now. And thank you very much to those of you fine folks at Patreon because you make these videos happen completely. Thank you. But as always, guys, I'm Jake Baldino. You can like me on Facebook, you can yell at me on Twitter, and you can subscribe because video games.